with about 13 of those in community relations. He has spent a significant amount of time in Campbell River over the 13 years. He is in communications lead for the John Hart Generating Replacement Project. And I'd like to introduce Stephen Watson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. And I'll reference Todd, the suspension bridge in a moment, but that's, we're really excited about that too. So I think a lot of you know the Campbell River system, but very broadly, from left to right is the Buddha Lake Upper Campbell Reservoir, which is about 75% of the water storage for the Campbell River system. Then we have the Lower Campbell Reservoir in the middle here, and then coming down to John Hart and into the ocean. So this system has been in place since the 40s and 50s. It provides about 10 to 20% of the island energy demands, depending on the time of year. Flood risk management, fish flows, source of water for the city, and so forth. So it's an important system. So the John Hart project was originally built in the 1940s, and it was taken out of the Elk Falls Provincial Park. So that's the orange area, is the BC Hydro property, which surrounds Elk Falls Provincial Park. So we have the John Hart Dam. It's 3/4 of a kilometer long, a mixture of earthfill and concrete with 3 pipelines that pass water from the reservoir down to the generating station. The low pressure pipelines are wood. They're about 1.1 kilometers long. Originally supposed to last about 40 years, but so far we've got 66. And then at top of the hill here is transitions to steel. That's the head drop, or the height drop down to the generating station. The surge towers, 90 meters tall, they're half full of water, the same elevation as the reservoir, and it provides pressure control for the pipelines. Then down the generating station, 6 units, 21 megawatts each, 126 megawatts, but because of the age it gets about 121 megawatts. That's enough for about 74,000 homes for power in the generating station itself. So there's 3 main project drivers that Hydro looked at, and we've been engaging the community for about 5 years. And one is seismic. We're concerned how the wood-stay pipelines and the generating station perform even in a low earthquake. We're concerned about the reliability. Like a car, you put a lot of money into it, but it gets to the point you need to replace it, and that's where we're at now. It's 66 years old. And just in early February is an example of the significant environmental risk. It's one of our highest environmental risks in our system. And while the generating station generally is pretty reliable, if we lose multiple units, that impacts river flow. So we had lightning activity about 5:30 in the morning that day, and it took out the intake gates in terms of the pressure control mechanisms. It caused 2 of the intake gates to close those pipelines, and that reduced water flow. So we have to respond by going to spillway gates and releasing water from the spillway dam down through the Elk Falls Canyon generating station. That takes time. It takes about an hour. So with this project, we'll deal with that. So like some of our facilities, this isn't over the mountain somewhere. It's right here, right almost in the middle of Campbell River. So it's a very unique site with the BC Heritage River, the river activities that take place, the Canyon View Trail, it's about 75,000 user days per year. The fishing activity, it's a pretty remarkable site and exciting for us to try to build this project. But a little bit about the history. This is with one of the pipelines in service and 2 of the units in service. This was probably taken in 1948. And the rest of the generating station was being built to add the other 4 units and other 2 pipelines. The old town site, about 12 houses was there, and some of those actually still exist in the community. They were moved off site. So what we're looking to do in the top right is we're going to move the water intake over to the spillway dam, which is the bottom left, inside that green box there. So we're going to move, and that's because we originally were going to replace the pipelines, but they're concerned about liquefaction because they're not on rock. So punch a hole through the concrete dam, go straight into rock, and then we'll go about 2.1 kilometers down to the generating station, about 40 to 90 meters below the surface, all in bedrock. The pipelines themselves will be removed and remediated, replanted into a natural forest, so our footprint will be significantly reduced. And then we'll have on the top left, that's a south side generating station, but it could be to the north of the existing station. We'll see where that goes. It'll look better than that. But that's an idea of where the generating station goes. So certainly the existing station and units will run while the new one's being replaced. So here is a shot of the current intake coming through the pipelines to the generating station. So we're going to switch over to the tunnel in the rock and back through all within BC Hydro properties to one of these 3 locations. And we'll know that this summer. So when I was here last time, we were either starting or just about to get through the regulatory process, and a lot's happened since then. So we were near the end of the environmental assessment, a low-level screening, and the changes in the federal government meant that we were no longer required to go within the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act. We actually just got a letter from Fisheries and Oceans Canada based on what we think the effects are to fish and what our mitigation and compensations are, that they'll be able to get us Fisheries Act authorizations, which is great. And as I mentioned, one of the main drivers is to deal and protect fish habitat downstream. The biggest achievement, I think, is the British Columbia Utilities Commission. This is the largest dollar value project we submitted to the Utilities Commission in our history. And we got approval. They reviewed our business case, and it was a clean approval, so we were happy about that. The BC Parks boundary adjustment, I referenced that it came through. We have to widen the access roads to get in to the site, and we have to do some minor foreshore areas around the new generating station. So it went through 3rd reading and a vote in the legislature. I just received royal assent last week, and there's another something has to happen before it's actually official, but it's pretty imminent. So essentially, we're in really good shape. So we're just starting the early works. The contract we'll talk about in a minute will be awarded this summer, but we need to prepare the site, modify the trails, modify the access roads and the upper parking lot, so everything's ready to go when they move in at the end of the summer or the fall. So next few weeks we're going to start construction on the Station View Trail, which is the red dotted line. So that'll be in place this summer, and for a number of months, 2 trails will go through our property, the Canyon View Trail as it exists today, along the river, and then Station View Trail, and then probably in the fall, the Canyon View Trail along the river will be closed off. But we'll still have that loop continuity during the construction phase. They'll have a lookout. The plateau up there is be able to look down the construction activity, so that'll be pretty neat. And you'll get a full idea just how big those surge towers are. Once you walk underneath them, they're pretty immense, so that's pretty neat. So this is a large construction site, and there's a lot of benefits to this project, but there's also some impacts. So the Brewster Lake Road, this is coming up General Hill. This is Highway 28, and it goes into Brewster Lake Road across the dam. So this road will be closed for up to 3 years. We'll know that schedule later on this year. But in lieu of that, and access into Elk Falls Park, we're going to have a road come in off Brewster Lake Road into the site here, and then a bridge over the pipelines and into the park. So that'll be the access into the park. That's a diagram on the top right, is the access road will be paved, 80-spot parking lot, buses, a community site office will be open to answer questions if people learn about the project, and then the bridge and access into the park. Originally it's going to be temporary, and then the Brewster Lake Road will reopen, everything else will take place, but in our discussions with BC Parks and of course with the Rotary Club and Laurie Fusa and others, there's a decision to make it a permanent. So this cost to us is well over $1 million, but this is a significant legacy for this community. So the famous photo op, I think I picked the worst date in December to do it. So there's Laurie and Andy and Todd in that picture. But then Neil Cameron had a great caption. He called this Hydro Claus, just before Christmas. So, I have to say that the Rotary Club is you guys do tremendous work. But I certainly have to recognize Charlie Cornfield. He planted the seed within Hydro a number of years ago, and that's why I asked him to come out to this. And but certainly that project, Suspension Bridge, is going to be phenomenal. Really excited about it. I know I can't wait to be there when it opens. I know Laurie will go first to make sure it.
That's who we've chosen.
Certainly with BC Hydro replacing the pipelines with underground tunnel, the water system needs to change. So currently they withdraw their water supply from the 3 pipelines. We're working with the city on a memorandum of understanding in terms of reference to have a dedicated pipeline separated from the BC Hydro system into the John Hart Reservoir, and those discussions are going well. We're very proud of the First Nations. We developed impact business agreements with all 3 First Nations, the Comox, the Wilukai, and the Kemper-Benunda, on training opportunities, economic opportunities, fish stewardship, and those kind of things. So that was a big achievement for us. First Nations weren't consulted when this facility was built in the 40s. We started that consultation in early 2007, so last year was really good for us to get those agreements in place. So So the business community, we've been working with them so they're prepared for this project, both locally and regionally, and they know of opportunities to get involved. So last July we had a speed dating event at the Maritime Heritage Center, and 130 businesses met them basically a year in advance of the project award, which is really had never been done before. And it was very good for the teams to understand how good Campbell River is in terms of trades and supplies, and good for the businesses to have those discussions earlier in the game. So that's what we're looking toward the work this summer. We'll have a very comprehensive business open house probably in early September, with the work starting late summer and early fall. This is just a graph on the types of jobs. This is actually over 6 years. It's a little bit old now. It's only 5 years, but it gives you an indication that in year 1 it's about 350 jobs. Year 2 is almost 500 jobs, and it goes down to 0. We have about 50 staff that work at John Hart, and after this project's finished, there'll be about 50 staff working there. But obviously a big influx of people. We would like to see a lot of local employment, but we don't know that. But certainly because we're trying to prepare the business so well and give them an opportunity to meet the teams, others should be well positioned. The other side of it is accommodation. So I get a lot of questions about jobs, I get a lot of questions about accommodation. People have houses, whether it's furnished or unfurnished, basement suites, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's going to be a lot of opportunity as this evolves. So gives you an idea of the type of scope. But overall, it's about 400 people per year on average working at that site. And that's it. So I have to take some questions.
Perfect. Keith.
I was wondering what folks are going to do with 3.3 kilometers of old growth fir planks when you take those pipes out.
Yeah, you may have read, we actually also removed the Heat River Diversion facility up by Gold River, and there's 3.6 kilometers of wood stay pipeline there. Both cases are treated with creosote. They're actually technically contaminated. A lot of people had interest in hot tubs and who knows what. Yeah. But unfortunately, they're actually contaminated, so they have to be properly disposed.
So how would you dispose of them?
Well, it'll be up to the contractor, but what happened with Beaver, we had industrial commercial soils that were taken to a local site here, and then the waste soils and hazardous soils were actually taken to the old catalyst site for storage, and then there was enough material they put on barge, and they were barged to the lower mainland for proper disposal. So I imagine it'd be a similar process here.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have two questions. One, we commented on 121 megawatts of power was a generation. That was my first question, as to what the new one will be. And the second one, if you guys come up with a business case scenario, what's the payback time on this facility?
Yeah, so the first question, we'll get about 128 megawatts, but with efficiencies of going from 6 units to 3 units, so just be 3 units with the new one, we'll get about a 7.5% gain. That's not one of the project drivers, is capacity, but we get a bonus of that, so that means we'll get enough power for about 80,000 homes versus 74,000 that we do now. Now, as far as the business case, we went to the BC Utilities Commission and we even looked at decommissioning, rehabilitation, all those kinds of things, and this is the lowest cost option for our ratepayers, which is you and I. And so the payback is, I mean, it's hard, it depends on how you do it. If you compare it to the market rates, it can be faster, but overall we have basically a 40 to 50 year period when it's paid off.
Cindy, did you have a question?
I'm an avid Canyon View trail user, so I'm quite concerned a little bit about the trail. But when I was looking on the map there, it looks like the new trail is going to be quite a bit bigger than the current one. Because right now I think it's just under 5 kilometers.
Yeah. So basically what it means is, I think it's like 300 meters longer, something like that. But having said that, at least we're allowing the trail to go through our property during construction. So the alternatives are, no, I have to say, like there's some people in this room that are actually we've been engaged in the community for over 5 years. We had a recreation advisory committee, the running group, the walking group, all those folks. And it was really important for them to maintain the trail. So there's costs to allow this trail to go through our property during the, so there's construction road activity coming in. We'll have to have some pedestrian control and things like that, and what that looks like, whether it's, anyway. But we think it's a good solution. And then when the project's finished, that trail will be decommissioned, and then we'll reestablish the trail back along near the river, roughly where it is today.
Just the where you said it's closed off on Brewster Road.
Yes.
Is it also going to be closed off to cyclists, hikers and horse riding?
Yes, there'll be no public access across the John Hart Dam in that area for about 3 years. It could be less. We're just putting out there that it could be up for 3 years. So you have to use alternative routes to get to the other side, which is, you know, the highway is a longer route. There's some people that use Iron River Road, which is not a public road, and there's some risks using that road, but there's different ways of getting around.
Good. Stephen, I had one quick question on timing of the tendering process. Now you've got 3 companies putting in a bid now. Coming back to you, can you tell us how that's going to play out?
Yeah, well, we issued a request for qualifications in March, and we had 8 teams make submissions, which was really good. So we shortlisted them down to 3 in June. One's S&C Lavalin, the other teams or consortiums, about 5 or 6 other groups, Flatiron Construction and others. But so they're competing right now on the design and construction of this project, and so we're going to award that this summer, probably around late July, early August. Then there's about a 2-month period or a month or 2 of closure to make sure we're all on the same page, and then they're good to go. So yeah.
Awesome. Laurie?
Is the tunnel contract separate from the generating contract?
It's all one contract.
One contract.
So they're going to have a tunneling group, subcontractor, either part of their team or subcontracted out, but it's all one big contract.
Another question. Are you going to come across with me the first time?
Yeah, you go ahead. No, I'll definitely be there, Laurie.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
I was kind of curious if they'd have any tours of the site before they put the water through the tunnel. Can we go down and see the tunnel?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, when part of the agreement is that we have an on-site open house once a year. And so I would love to be able to, I'm not sure it's possible or not, but I'd love to be able to have an opportunity for the community to go inside the tunnel. You know, it's a one-day event, but there will be an on-site event once a year so the community can see whether there's excavation of the generating station or at some milestone event, we'll have that on site. So you might be able to. In the least, we're going to have some construction videos taken each year. They'll be posted on a touchscreen on the community site office, and we'll have some footage of it in the
Ken?
Yeah, I'm one of the dam pools that worked on the installation of that pipeline and also the building of the dam. Not too much on the actual building, but I did work on it at that time. And I do have a few pictures taken that shows the old concrete plant that they had set up across. It's all trees now.
Yeah.
You'd never get them pictures now.
Yeah, maybe we can talk later. I'd love to get pictures, because part of the community site office is to have pictures of the construction period and what it looked like originally in the 40s, and then today, and then what it looked like in the future.
Okay, if we could get together, I'll supply them.
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting point. I mean, when we did the He River Diversion project, we removed the facility. It was built in the 50s, removed last year, and there's people who are around who, in their lifetime, to see it built, which some of them weren't too happy about, but to see it removed in their lifetime was pretty neat. So this must be kind of interesting from your perspective.
Yeah, well, I was just a kid at that time, but I didn't.
Yeah, you've aged well.
Chris, did you have a question?
When I was a teenager, I climbed up that surge tower, one of them, and the view of...
What's your name?
And sticks in my mind is what a great view it was. So I'm wondering, are you going to allow people up there, or maybe you could...
No, we've had a few suggestions of zip lines and all kinds of wonderful things that could go down there. No, as an aside, and it is fenced off. We don't want people up there. But you know, it's amazing. Kids being what they do. We've found things up there, and I don't know. It's kind of scary. But yeah, no, they're really high. I mean, I guess they don't look that big, but once you're by them, you'll get a full scope of just how big they are. So it'll be pretty neat to walk by them.
Stephen, maybe you can let us know, are they all staying, or
Yeah, at least one will stay. There's 3 towers. One is a bit of a navigation aid for the airport. There's also communication works on the same tower. And so the left tower to the south will stay. But there's a good chance all 3 could stay because they're in good condition seismically and condition-wise. And even with the tunnel, you need some pressure management systems. But so, you know, there's still a pretty good chance all 3 could stay.
David, one last question.
I use the trail a lot too, and was quite impressed. You had some guy out there about 4 or 5 years ago asking the trail users about it, and I thought, gee, you know, they're doing a great job of, you know, handling public opinion here and paying attention to the public. So I haven't heard any opposition at all to the project. Of course, maybe I'm not listening, but I just, you know, you make a comment about what opposition you received, you know, how much it was, if it was an issue or not, or, you know,
Yeah,
how the local society views the project.
Yeah, it's yeah, we had 1,800 people fill out that questionnaire, so that gives you an idea how many people use it and how people feel about it. Yeah, you know what? Knock on wood. We've had so little opposition. I can't think of anyone really who's opposed to this project or has an issue because we started so early in the project that at that time we explained what our concerns were. Was it decommissioning? Was it rehabilitation? Was it replacement? We've taken the community along for the ride in terms of what we were thinking and how we ended up getting there. So, you know, the Canyon View Trail, the river access, the upper parking lots, Elk Falls, all those kind of things, we've kind of listened and dealt with it. So, it's been very, very positive. So, yeah. And I have to say, I'd like to thank all the people that do engage. It's got to be a two-way street. So, you know, we have about 30 people on the liaison committee. We had about a couple dozen on the recreation advisory committee. And a lot of people are just spending their own time. Like Colin's been part of that, and Andy, and a whole bunch of other people, Lori, who gave us the feedback for us to consider it. So that's just as important. So, thank you.
Hart, sorry, Hart. Al, one last question.
Just one last question, because I haven't heard anything about it. The new tunnel entrance is where the spillway is now.
Yes.
And the spillway is partly responsible sometimes for you people looking after water levels for fish.
That's right.
In the Campbell. Is that, how much is that going to differ, Stephen?
Yeah, it's not much. That's the picture in the bottom left there. So the intake will go where that white arrow's pointing. We're also going to actually probably have a valve, like a collar-cone valve, that actually provide the minimum flow downstream rather than the 3 gates. But the 3 gates will be unchanged and they provide flood risk management. No change there.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Hart.
President Todd, fellow Rotarians and honored guests, I'd like to thank Stephen very much for coming and speaking with us again. It's always entertaining, and I really think that the amount of public consultation and thought that BC Hydro has put into this project is a model for other project managers of this size. So thanks very much for coming, and thanks for the cash. Don't forget about
That always
back
helps,
again.
doesn't it? Thank you very much.
Stephen, to thank you, as is our tradition here, I've got a book I'd like you to sign, and we will donate that to the Carey Infant Daycare Center on your behalf. Attendance, please.
President Todd, 80%.
Oh, well done, Judy. Thank you. We have a draw today for World Community Service.